Hi, this is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Welcome to my Star OS Week in Review podcast. This is podcast number 167. Any articles or videos mentioned can be found on my website at intergalacticherald.com. Just look for Weekly Recap Newsletter 215. So just a quick summary of things to go over this past week in Star Atlas, that occurred this past week in Star Atlas. There was the first DAO Casters Brew, so I'll talk about that. And then there was an Atlas Brew from the community team, actually quite full of information this time. So anyways, before we get to those two things, just wanted to mention things I'm working on Star OS. Of course, first is my website, intergalacticherald.com. It's a great Star OS resource website with guides, directories, recap, and a Discord announcement newsfeed. You can also check out my Star OS merch store at intergalacticgear.com. And then love to get together with other Star OS gamers. So creating kind of a non-guild called the Intergalactic Coalition. That's at intergalacticcoalition.com. If you're interested in kind of that organizing concept, please check that out. So anyways, getting into the main content that happened this past week in Star Atlas, as I mentioned. First was, so I think it was Sunday? Can't remember. Anyways, it was the first DAO Casters. So my understanding was there was a Star Atlas DAO PIP proposal that was approved that would fund both paying for content and some giveaways. And one of the requirements of the people that became or got voted in and, well, I guess nominated themselves and then got voted in was to have a monthly meetup or brew. And so their first one occurred, if I remember correctly, they said most of them were European or that, hemisphere, latitude? Anyways, yeah, hemisphere, I can't remember. How's the Earth? It doesn't matter. Anyways, it was really early my time in the United States because I think they were mostly in Europe. So anyways, so that was really good. Full video was recorded by Star OS TV, so you can check it out there. And of course, if you're listening to this podcast, you already received the AI summary a few days ago. So anyways, unfortunately, I listened to it last week and have now promptly forgotten everything. But I think overall, the cool part to me was a little bit of a, not deja vu, but a restart of the Metaverse Nomads show, who were a few members of the Rome Guild, who was doing a Sunday morning show. And so it kind of got that same kind of vibe of a few Star OS community people getting together talking. So again, it was really nice. I think they said because of the time zones, there wasn't a lot of people listening in. And to be honest, I didn't know it was coming. So maybe future we'll have more announcements maybe it was on the Star OS Discord. I don't know. I didn't hear about it. It doesn't matter. I wasn't awake. So but anyways, yeah, so that's a great development and definitely want to always promote anybody working and curating content within the Star Atlas ecosystem. I think so far I did put, I don't think it was this week, but I think it was the previous week, one of the Winston, I believe, had a YouTube video. So again, I predominantly curate the YouTube videos and articles, text-based articles, not much into the social media stuff. But again, if I can see it or something like that, it's just hard to subscribe to things and know and create links to them. So anyway, so that was a pretty cool development this past week. And then there was the regular scheduled Atlas Brew. And like I mentioned, this one actually had quite a variety of information. So started with a presentation of another DAO project that was approved called Atlas Relay. It's a place to upload short videos and earn some Atlas for doing that. So that's a cool initiative. I don't know if it was officially released or it was just in testing. I kind of, as anybody who listens to this regularly, I listen to the recordings. Thank you again to Star OS TV for those on Friday nights, and sometimes I'm more awake than other nights, so I don't remember if that was launched or whatever. And then also was mentioned some, I think AFIA, one of the guilds, producing some new data dashboards based on some technology changes. Systems that used to do the data dashboards don't exist anymore, so they're building out something there. There was some information on HoloSim prizes. Unfortunately, I kind of glossed over that since I'm not playing HoloSim, but to the people who have, that's obviously important if you're on the leaderboard and things like that. A good chunk of the middle was a new UE5 demo of some of the latest developments, and again, I guess I listened to everything, but nothing went into my brain, so I apologize. But again, the StarOS TV has the entire recording, and again, I would have had a AI summary of what came out this couple days ago. So then there was a mention, or actually Michael Wagner, CEO, joined late in the brew and kind of gave a whole bunch of information in a very short time frame. One of them was some more information about Zynq. They are reviewing or getting close to releasing some technical documentation. This is predominantly, I think, to get developers interested. So that's kind of cool. And there was some mention that they have worked on the bridge service. And if I remember correctly, the bridge service is so you can take, I'm not sure if it's Solana, but definitely, I think it was assets between the Zynq network, which is a clone, for lack of a better term, of Solana to Solana, so move things back and forth between those two. So that was cool. And then Michael Wagner was asked kind of a quick roadmap of where things are, not dates, but just kind of the order. And so that, I mean, again, it was just a couple minutes, but it was really insightful. So that C4 PTR is the next, obviously, has been mentioned before. Holosym is continuing to develop. And then we mentioned kind of Zynq is that thing that's tying everything together. Of course, he didn't want to give dates, but he gave some range, and he was saying 2 to 3 months. I mentioned there was lots of coordination to get all these pieces together, but they are going to have a launch strategy coming out. So anyways, yeah, so that was a great update. Well, at least verbally, I guess sometimes he puts some of this information in the foundation room, but it was just, I don't know, just nice there. So anyways, I'll move to my next section, which is kind of thinking about the state of StarOS and a little more commentary and analysis. So yeah, I think the Dowcaster thing, again, like I said, it was really nice for people that have been around a while and did listen. I always listen delayed, but it was less delayed for a Sunday morning thing. It was kind of great to just hear a bunch of StarOS community members just talking. So that was really great. Kind of do wonder, though, if it will be a little bit kind of how the initial group kind of goes, kind of how the Burst Council, you know, again, the first group always has to kind of figure things out and put things in place and structure and things like that. So again, if I remember correctly, the proposal that it was only for a 3-month group. So if they're having their first one, I assume they're already a month in. So it's kind of like maybe they'll have 1 or 2 more before there'll be another group. But again, great to see community content creators start some names, even if some of them have been in the community before. Again, I think it's just really great. And so I'm glad this initiative is, happening. And then specifically about the Atlas Brew thoughts. One, even though I, again, was tired and wasn't really paying attention on the UE5 developments, nevertheless, it was cool that there was some UE5 developments. I have to admit, I thought perhaps the UE5 was pretty much put on the back burner. But again, one of the developers still has a job. Sorry, not to make light of having a job, but again, they still have someone who is on payroll and developing things. So that is really good that it's not fully abandoned effort or just paused effort at this point. I think the Zynq technical documentation will be a great milestone. Glad to see that that's something they had mentioned about getting external validators and things like that. So the fact that there'll be official documentation and I mean, only kind of, I don't know what, not that it makes it official, but more tangible, I guess, because there's an actual document. And again, this is needed to get people to want to participate. You know, you have to make it sound like you know what you're doing and things like that. So, and the final thought, definitely the roadmap update was very nice. I'm going to call it official, only in the sense that ultimately CEO Michael Wagner, when he speaks, that's obviously what the direction of the company is. That's what the CEO does. So we've heard most, if not all, of that before. But again, it was just, I guess, nice to know that, they're still making progress. So even though maybe not a lot visually they can show yet, but again, they are moving forward. And we'll just have to see and be patient, as has been, I guess, just how things are in the StarOS ecosystem. So anyway, that was kind of my thoughts on the state of StarOS. Wrap up with my last section, kind of my journey playing StarOS. If you've been following along, again, I've been trying to craft all the resources, raw materials necessary to do a Mamba X. Been doing it for way too long, but I'm just about done mining the iron ore, so I'll be able to start transferring that back. couple weeks, maybe a month ago, I did actually update my checklist, so I know exactly how more of each to get. I just don't remember what the next one on the list is. So I'll move my little miner to that next place, use the transport fleet to bring that stuff all back, and kind of keep just going through. I guess one thing is just putting 2 and 2 together, if it is 2 or 3 months off, but again, that could have just been the PTR. I think Sage as a functional product is there to the bitter end until Zinc launches and the actual C4 launches. So at this point, I'm feeling better that there's time for me to finally accomplish this one long-term or one goal that's been long-term. And funny thing is, I think I've noticed that the Mamba X's for sale are dirt cheap, but at this point, I have to admit, it's more of just completionism. This was a goal I set a long time ago, but one of the side benefits, of course, running these actions in Sage is earning Zinc experience points. So again, kind of a trade-off. I can accomplish something I set out to do a long time ago and continue to get some of the Zinc experience points. So yeah, so that's it on that. And then just one final thing that doesn't fit in any of the traditional categories. I actually saw a comment on my YouTube channel, so appreciate that comment. And it wasn't one sentence, it was a paragraph of stuff. And the person actually was asking if to do a kind of, I guess, a 6-year review. And the person kind of compared it to the Star Citizen development path. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about Star Citizen than just ever so brief overview of Kickstarter project and lots of things. I think I read the Wikipedia page at one point. So, but I think the question about the 6-year review is actually kind of intriguing. A lot of work. I don't think I was even here for the first year. So it would definitely take some actual thought to put something together to kind of compare. But again, it's a really interesting idea. And I guess partly it was the idea that we are 6 years into something that I remember at the time, everybody was like, oh, no, we'll have the full game in 2-3 years. And again, just the first thing that came to my mind is I'm sure all those predictions were based upon a 100 to 200 person company. Not, again, I don't know how many people are still working, but tens seems reasonable. Or, likely. It doesn't feel like a massive amount. Again, we just don't hear from people anymore. So, yeah. So, but anyways, it's an interesting thought, and I'll kind of ponder it. I do admit I'm not sure if I have the time for it, but just more of, it's a very intriguing question. So, anyways, I'll stop there, wrap it up. So, thanks again for listening. Again, totally open if anybody wants to be a guest on the podcast. We can just talk about the week in review. You're doing anything Stone Star Atlas, love to just promote your projects and things like that. Please do check out my website, intergalactichero.com. Again, guides, admittedly outdated guides, but structures there, content's just outdated because the product's not been developed much more since some of those videos were done. But the Discord news announcement feed is live, and I have to admit this week I was a little busy at night and I got all the announcements sent to me, so that was kind of cool. Intergalacticgear.com, my merch store, and Intergalactic Coalition, my community site. So thanks. That was the week in review of Star Atlas. My name is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Have a great week ahead.